Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the Blessed One, Perfect One, supremely. And Namo Buddhaya, everyone. And a very a beautiful Dhamma evening, all of you. Most Venerable Ajahn Jayasaro and the Sangha members. With the permission of Ajahn, I heartily welcome all the Venerable monks and lay disciples to this evening Dhamma sessions with Ajahn. Let me give you a brief introduction about Most Venerable Ajahn. Although we don't need any such introduction, Ajahn has already graced here before and blessed all of you. In this very hall last time, probably last year, Ajahn came and delivered a talk. And many of you already know Ajahn through his talks, his writings, and his wisdom and his meditation teachings, and most recently in India, in through the Aranya Vihara, and also in Bodh Gaya. Okay. Nonetheless, we are deeply honored to welcome Most Venerable Ajahn to today's Dhamma program at Maha Bodhi Society, Bengaluru. Venerable Ajahn is a highly revered monk in the Thai forest tradition. And originally, Ajahn was from England, and then he became a disciple of renowned meditation master Lampucha and spent over 4 decades in monastic training and practice in Thailand. Now, currently residing in Prakchok Forest Monastery and traveling to India and sharing his profound wisdom with clarity and practical approach to the Buddha's teaching. Ajahn has inspired countless practitioners around the world through his Dhamma talks, books, retreat, and his educational work. His teachings emphasize mindfulness, compassion, moral living, and the cultivation of wisdom and mindfulness in our daily life. So, with profound gratitude and respect, it's a great privilege for us to have Ajahn today with us. So let us now warmly invite Most Venerable Ajahn Jayasaro and receive his Dhamma teachings. So I would request everybody to be attentive while you are listening. There will be also a question answer session afterwards. So let us give sadhu 3 times and welcome Ajahn. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Buddhasam bhagavato arahato sambuddhassa. Namo tassam bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassam bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang Nutarang upachayang namasami. Well, I'm very happy to be able to meet with you all again this evening. And as it happens, the today is Uposatha, so I've really enjoyed being able to participate in the Patimokkha recitation here earlier this afternoon, and later this evening I will be leaving and returning to Thailand. So just a very short visit, but one in which I hope to be able to share with you some practical and uplifting reflections on the Dhamma. one of the questions that comes up frequently is, where do I start? And one of the other questions that is almost as frequent is, how do I measure my progress in Dhamma practice? A question that often appears also is there just one Dhamma teaching that I can apply if I had to choose from all the Dhamma teachings? So to that last question, my answer is always that no, there is not just one Dhamma teaching, because the unique feature of the Lord Buddha's teachings are that they form an organic whole. It's a holistic system of training, sikha, or education. And in any holistic system, you take just one element of that out of context, and not only do you fail to receive all of the benefits of it, but it usually becomes distorted. We can see, for example, the way that mindfulness has been extracted from the Eightfold Path and been spread throughout the world. And I must say that there has been some very good things that have come from that. But through various cultural, social, commercial reasons, the understanding of mindfulness that is now to be found in the Western world is not quite the same as the teaching of Sammasati in Buddhasasana. So there's not just one teaching. It's not a step-by-step teaching. In this sikha, or training, or education, there is an education of our conduct and speech, which we call sila. There's an education of our heart, in particular, learning all the skills of abandoning unwholesome dhammas and cultivating the wholesome. And that's the realm of samadhi. So here samadhi does not mean the same as samma samadhi. It's a general term for the training of the heart. And finally, the training of wisdom and understanding, and the way that we look at the world and our ideas and our perception. This is the realm of wisdom, panya. So our education simultaneously engages our actions, our speech, our emotions, our thinking. It's just one beautifully expressed sawakata Dhamma. As regards the question as to how we measure progress, one answer that I really appreciate, given by one of my own teachers, is that if you are practicing the Dhamma correctly, then the things that make you suffer become less and less. And the things that bring you joy in life increase. So that's quite a general standard or observation. But what I would like to talk about this evening is one of the Buddha's great checklists. So if you've studied the Buddha's teachings in the Tipitaka, in the suttas, the discourses, then they are often presented in terms of groups. We have groups of one Dhammas and twos and threes and fours and fives and so on. Now, the reason why the teachings are expressed in that way is one, because it aids memory. And this was a teaching that was passed on orally and not written down. But more profoundly than that, the Dhammas in each group have a special and unbreakable relationship between them. It's not just an arbitrary collection of good qualities or bad qualities. Now, if we're looking, if there are some of these lists that we can use as a checklist, and that is to say, we can go through them point by point and then look at ourselves and see, do we see that quality within us? Is it growing, or is it becoming less? Is it diminishing? So in the on the akusala side, then one of the best checklists are the 16 upakilesa. And you can look this up afterwards, or one of the Venerable teachers here can point you to that list. It is a very good list. But today I want to talk about a list of kusala dhammas, and that group of kusala dhammas we call paramis. It's very difficult to translate that word into English, at least, and the word that is usually used is perfections, but that's not really a good translation, I think. So the paramis are, we can say, all of the constituent virtues, the most essential virtues that bring the maturity of mind necessary for liberation. Now, traditionally, we talk about the 10 paramis with regard to the practice of the Bodhisattva before he became the Buddha. But these virtues, these paramis, are not restricted to the path to Buddhahood. They can also, or should also, be developed by those who are following the path to Sawakabhumi. So they lead to stream entry and to the higher levels of Dhamma, just as they can, under certain special circumstances, lead to Buddhahood. But I would like to translate these parami as maturing factors. We live in a very technical world, and we tend to assume that problems that arise are because we haven't got the right technique or the right technology, and that there's some special teaching, esoteric teaching, or some trick or tip that will help us to break through the difficulties we are experiencing in Dhamma practice. But the paramis are teaching us that we need this all-round development and this maturity before we can truly benefit from the techniques. So many people doing retreats these days, 7-day, 10-day retreats, and applying a technique, and often will experience some samadhi or some insight, And this is really good. I am very much in support of meditation retreats. I don't mean to criticize them here, simply that they can give you a unrealistic expectation of the path ahead because of the quite sometimes quite strong experiences that you can find on the retreats, and make it seem as if this should be the norm going forward. But usually it's not. And it's only those with the all-round practice and the attention to all the different areas of life who are able to consolidate and integrate the insights that arise during meditation retreats. I'm going to go through these 10 paramis or 10 qualities, not at great length, it would take too long, but just a summary. And the first is dana. And so dana forms the basic underlying practice for we Buddhists. And in the presentation of the threefold training of Sila, Samadhi, and Panya, often in the Buddhist tradition, for lay people, the expression tend to be dana, sila, bhavana. In fact, we're covering the same ground. It's just, but for lay people, the lay Buddhists, emphasis put on dana. And there is a very interesting sutta where the Buddha is talking about the obstacles to the experience of jhana. So this here you would expect a technical treatise and emphasizing the hindrances to the nivarana and so on. But in fact, the Buddha points to macharya, or possessiveness, selfishness, stinginess. So by giving and sharing and developing the habit of sharing and developing the dana parami, you're also removing the most fundamental obstructions to realization of jhana. So this is why I said right at the beginning of the discourse that everything is connected in a very profound way. I have a dana story I would like to tell you, true story. And so in my teens, I came to India. I arrived in Amritsar after traveling overland from England in 1975. I was 17 years old. I was on a great adventure. And I traveled all around India. Well, I didn't come to Bangalore. I went down the west coast from Mumbai to Goa to Kerala, and then up through Tamil Nadu to Orissa. But towards the end of my stay, I was wandering around in the Himalayas, north of Shimla. And I was sleeping rough, sleeping under trees, and living my interpretation of the sadhu life. And one day it was the late afternoon. I was walking along a small road, and there was a shack by the side of the road, and an old couple was standing in front of the shack. And the old man gave me the universal sign. He said, like this. So I could understand. He was saying, "Have you eaten yet?" And so I hadn't, and so I accepted his invitation. And the old couple and myself We had very tasty meal of roti, and chapati, and dal. And then it was getting dark. And the elderly gentleman just made this other gesture like this. And I understood. He said, "Would you like to spend the night?" And so I accepted this kind invitation. But when they showed me the place they wanted me to sleep, I was a bit stunned because there was one room, no furniture, and just a rope bed. And then in one corner, there was some clothes. That was about all there was. And so I didn't know where they wanted me to sleep. And they pointed to the bed. And I said, I cannot sleep on your bed. But they insisted. And so that's what happened. So I woke up early in the morning. And at first where am I? I was confused. And then I saw the the old couple asleep on the floor by the side of the bed. And I was so moved, and I thought, I will never forget this kindness. And I was right. Even now, after 50 years almost, I can still, I've forgotten so many things in my life, so many trips and so many experiences, but this is still very, very much in my mind. And afterwards, after I left, I concluded that this couple were rich. They were truly rich. And you could see how joyful they were. Because you could see in their mind, they were rich because they had enough food for themselves and to share with the guest. They had a place to sleep and a place for a guest to sleep. They were rich and they were happy and proud. And this is the beauty of dana. When you perform an act of goodness for which you do not expect any return, you plant a seed in the mind, in the heart of the person that you help. In my case, that seed bloomed and grew into such appreciation. But also, you bring joy to your own heart. So if anything will bring happiness immediately to the human heart, and a happiness that will stay with you, then dana is that thing. When you give dana, you change your attitude to the things that we say, yes, this is mine. You're not only thinking, this is mine, don't come near, and I want as much, and I want more than everybody else. Your mind changes. When you see something, you're thinking, oh, I've got more than I need. Maybe I can give to someone else. In all of the circling around in samsara over how many countless lifetimes, when that's a jewel in the mind, isn't it? When the mind looks at possessions and doesn't only think of oneself, but what one can give and share with others. So this is a maturing of the mind. The selfish mind is a narrow mind, it's a miserable mind, a dark mind. The mind that loves to give and share is a bright and open, spacious mind. So this is why it matures the human heart and is a constituent of the heart which is able, ready to realize liberation. Sila is the second parami, and sila means we take responsibility for our actions and speech. And one of the key features of sila in the Buddha Dhamma, which differentiates it from many moral codes, is that in the Buddha Dhamma, sila has to be voluntary. This means that if you were to refrain from hurting others and stealing and so on, simply because you are afraid of punishment or afraid of what will happen after you die, or you refrain from immoral actions because you hope that you will go to heaven, that is not sila in Buddhist. That's good behavior. It's better than bad behavior, but it's not sila. Why is it not sila? Because the intention matters. And it only becomes sila when it becomes part of this overall training. Sila leads to and increases samadhi and panya. So if you are behaving in a certain way because you want some reward or you're afraid of something, then the parami of sila is not appearing in your mind. But if you create or you accept these boundaries for your actions, and you are able to live your life within those boundaries which you have freely chosen, because you have the wisdom to see the benefit of doing so, then you will inevitably experience pressure to transgress your precepts, temptations to transgress your precepts. But if you can nevertheless maintain your commitment to the precepts, whatever the situation, whatever the people around you are encouraging you or forcing you, then the power of that is quite remarkable. The power of self-respect, that integrity gives you real strength of character and gives you a very good feeling about yourself. You respect yourself and you become good friends with yourself. So many people are not good friends with themselves. They don't. What's the worst punishment outside of capital punishment is solitary confinement, meaning forcing you to be with yourself over a long period. How many of the technologies and the things that we fill our lives these days are distractions so we don't have to be with ourselves? We don't feel comfortable being with ourselves. We don't like ourselves very much. But if you keep precepts, you like your own company. You enjoy your own company. You respect yourself. You're someone who has boundaries, and you keep yourself within those boundaries, not because somebody tells you, but because you realize it's the wisest thing to do. The third parami is nekama. So this is almost always translated as renunciation. So on a post today, maybe some of you have taken the 8 precepts. This is an act of renunciation and is development of this nekama parami, where you take a step back from the sensual world and sensual pleasures, and find a way of reducing the hold that those pleasures have upon you. But I would like to explain nekama slightly differently today. And I think that when we emphasize renunciation, we miss something in this translation or explanation. And for me, nekama means dwelling in the non-sensual world, being familiar with and spending time in a state of mind which is not bound up with the senses. And so this isn't just a matter of taking precepts or making or particular acts of renunciation, not to do that, not to do this, but to observe also that every time our mind is dwelling in goodness and kindness and generosity, then we are not being directed by, we're not the puppets, so we're not being manipulated by sensual desires. We're in the non-sensual world. So observe that whenever the mind is very pure and kind and good, and there are moments or even minutes and every day, this is nekama. And enjoy that and see its beauty. But the most important element of this parami is samadhi. Because if you develop the niramisa sukha of samadhi, which is the sukha that is just the natural radiance of the mind which is free from hindrances, then this experience, if we reflect upon it, is so important to us, because we have all heard, haven't we, since childhood, that the true happiness lies within. And we pay lip service to this, and we say, yes, yes, that's true. But when we have to make a choice, we will still go for the less satisfactory kinds of happiness, because we don't really believe that there is this superior kind of happiness that we can access within us through following Buddha's teachings. So if you have experienced that, then you now have a measure of sensual pleasures. You have an alternative. So the reason why so many people get caught up in destructive sensual habits and pleasures, even though they cause havoc with their physical health or their relationships or their bank balance, this is not an IQ problem. The problem is that people are afraid. They are afraid they will have no happiness in their life. And so they acknowledge the happiness of sensual pleasures is unsatisfactory, causes a lot of dukkha, but at the end of the day, it's better than no happiness at all. And the really sure way to transcend or to let go of that fear and attachment through fear is of developing samadhi and proving to yourself that there is a happiness apart from sensual pleasures. So nekama means learning to dwell in the non-sensual world, becoming familiar with it, making it a refuge. Wisdom, of course, a very big topic, one that could talk about for hours. But here, I'd just like to choose that element of learning from experience, giving yourself the time and the space to digest your daily experiences. and to observe what's going on. What really makes you happy? What really makes you suffer? What is the relationship between defilement and suffering? What is the relationship between wholesome dhammas, virtues, and happiness? We reflect again and again on impermanence. Nothing is sure, nothing is stable. And particularly for householders, this reflection that I will be separated from everyone, everything that I love, sooner or later. So in family life, we have, we love our parents and grandparents, our spouses, our children. This is normal and natural, but that love must be informed by, must have the light of wisdom play upon it. So we didn't say you should not be so attached to your family, you should be this, you should be that. This is not a matter of should or shouldn't. Simply bringing to mind every day, this is temporary. We are not going to be together forever. There is going to be separation. And so this is rehearsing, training the mind to acknowledge the truth that no matter how much we love our families, one day we are going to be separated from them. We hope it's a long time in the future, but we don't know. We have no guarantees. And so holding that together with your love, these two things are compatible, but it just means that there's not the same intensity of holding on so tightly. We know that we are children, not ultimately our children. These are beings who've lived so many lives before. They have some karmic connection with us, that they have become our children, but they're not our possessions. And they have their own karma, which has accompanied them into this life. And we have no way of measuring that or knowing beforehand what the baggage that they brought with them consists of. So we become a little bit more relaxed. We're not trying to meditate away all the love that we have for our family, but trying to make it a more intelligent and Dhammic love. The wisdom always coming back to three characteristics and observing and learning from experience. So to give an example, it's often common to blame people. Oh, he disappointed me so much. She made me so angry. And so we put so much on other people. It's like they have the power to make us suffer. But is that really what's happening? And when we look at our hearts and minds very closely, continuously, we see that whatever the people around us do or say, whatever happens in our communities, in our country, in the world, the suffering, the mental suffering, only occurs in the presence of defilement in our hearts. So without defilement, these things are still there. They still cause us problems. They're not things that we would welcome. But that sense of dukkha, the dukkha in the human heart, is not caused by other people, is not caused by external circumstances. There has to be some defilement in the mind which grasps onto that external trigger. So in some cases, we may be able to alleviate or make changes in the external environment, and if we can, we should do that. But most importantly, we learn how to prevent our mind from grasping on to the phenomena as me and mine. That is heart of wisdom development. Going on now to virya and effort. The Buddha says, my teaching is a teaching of effort. And the Buddha, when the Buddha was critical, and sometimes he was quite critical of other religious traditions of his day, but not to raise up his own teaching and put down other people. And but his strongest criticisms were of religions and cults that undermined human effort. So he said that if you believe that everything that happens in life is due to God or a God, then why do anything? Whatever you do, it's just the same. It's going to, it's all decided beforehand. If you believe in fate, or if you believe that everything is the result of past karma, or if you believe that everything is just random and there's no cause and effect. In every case, the question believes, well, why should you abandon the unwholesome? Why should you develop the wholesome? It's pointless because you have no power to affect anything. And the Buddha insisted that that is not the case. And through his enlightenment, he had realized this truth that human beings excuse me, can abandon the unwholesome, can develop the wholesome, can purify their minds, and that by doing so, they've realized their fullest potential as human beings. So if we look at the Four Noble Truths, then we can see that the Buddha is saying suffering arises through craving. Craving is the desire that arises when the mind is ignorant of the true nature of things. So when we see the samudaya, the cause of suffering is craving or tanha, we can imagine in brackets, in parentheses, avijja. Craving is avijja desire. It's only craving when there is avijja. Without avijja, there is no craving. And liberation, the amata sukha, the amata Dhamma, is dependent on the virtues of the Eightfold Path. To summarize, dukkha through akusala dhammas, sukha through kusala dhammas. Very simplification of Four Noble Truths. So if we take this, then Buddha So the Buddha wants us to teach these teachings like we are scientists and these are our working hypotheses. He wants us to put them to the test. So if we take these teachings and try to apply them in our lives, we see we have four challenges in our life. One is, how do we prevent akusala dhammas, all the defilements, from arising in the mind? How do we live? How do we look after our mind in such a way that as yet unarisen, unwholesome dhammas will not arise? But of course, that's so difficult that we also need plan B, which is when the akusala dhammas have arisen, how do we let go of them? And similarly with kusala dhammas, how can we bring into the mind, how can we instill in the mind those good qualities which are not there yet? And of those which have arisen, how can we take care of them and cultivate them and bring them to maturity? So these are what we call the four right efforts, samavayama. And this is similar to, this is the same as developing the virya. So what is formal meditation? It's like meditation. What is that? Why do we do it? What are we doing when we meditate? So my suggestion is that we are practicing the four right efforts in the most conducive environment possible. It's difficult. It's difficult to put forth these efforts. It's difficult to be mindfulness. So at least once a day, seeing how important this work is, we make some time for it. Early morning is the best. 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour, even an hour, depends. And we choose a place which is not hot, not cold, it's quiet, we're far away from all our devices and all the distractions, and we apply ourselves to putting forth effort into, for example, mindfulness of breathing. And how do we develop mindfulness of breathing? We do so by focusing on the breath in such a way that as yet unarisen, unwholesome dhammas do not arise. And in the case when they do arise, in order to let them go, we focus on the breath in such a way that we are bringing the wholesome dhammas into the mind, sati, sampajanya, and so on. And then when they start to arise and they're there, then we start to cultivate them. We cultivate the bojjhangas, we cultivate the jhana factors and bring them to maturity. In daily life, how do we live our lives as lay Buddhists? Same. We are developing these same four right efforts. In our daily life, we're constantly attending to how we can look after our minds when we're at home with our family, when we're at work, when we're whatever we're doing. How can we look after our minds so that the defilements don't come in the mind? And how can we let go of the defilements if they do arise? In any situation, what good qualities can we develop here while we're performing our duties, while we're working, and while we're whatever we might be doing? Not only is the task itself, the work itself, the responsibility itself should be done well, but we also have concurrently, at the same time, we are developing spiritually in this way, by bringing good qualities into the mind and cultivating them and increasing them, bringing them to maturity. Patience, the sixth parami, patient endurance, patience. This is beautifully explained by Ajahn Sumedho, Lumpur Sumedho, one of my teachers. And he defined it as peaceful coexistence with the unpleasant. It means when you're in a situation where you can't do anything about it, okay? It's like this, whether it's physical pain and discomfort, or maybe you're being abused, or just there's an unpleasant situation which you can't escape from. You have to be here. So how do you deal with this in a way that you feel discomfort, even pain, but you don't suffer? So how do you find a way of separating pain from suffering? Patience is number one. Patience means that you maintain this stable mind, and you're not turning away, turning your back on, repressing. You're aware of the difficulty, you're aware of the painful situation or sensation, but you're with it. And it's like if you were in a cave, and you're sitting here, and this is monks, you're sitting here, and there's a snake over there, and you're meditating, and the snake maybe is meditating, we don't know, but the snake does his snake business, and you do your monk business, and it's okay, so you can be in the same room with the snake. You can be with physical pain or mental things that are going on, but you're just there with them. And patient endurance is not like gritting your teeth and looking at the clock and how many. That's not patience. Patience is, yeah, I can be with this. I can exist in the same room as this, in the same place as this, and I won't get agitated and upset and so on. I can just be here with this unpleasant phenomena. This is a development of patience. We have to react to things immediately. And why patience is so important is that without it, many of the other important wholesome dhammas can't really get a firm hold in our minds. Even sila. Maybe you've made a firm commitment to 5 precepts, and you're really sincere about those 5 precepts. But then you have some situation which is unpleasant, painful, and you can't bear it, and you just break your precept. So the difference sometimes between breaking precept, not breaking, is lack of patience. And patience and mindfulness together, they're what allows you to act and speak in ways which are in harmony with your values and your aspirations. Without patience, without sati, you get swept away by whatever's going on. The patience is so important, and patience is also, I think, a great teacher. We know that even in more traditional Asian societies like India, these days, younger people are not so respectful of the elders as they used to be. There's something going on throughout the world, and you have some knowledge and experience that you want to share with the younger people, and they maybe say, oh, you lived in a different world, Grandma. You don't know the world I live in, So basically your knowledge and your experience is not applicable to my life and my experience. This is the way that many young people feel these days. But teaching and sharing is not restricted to speech and advice. But when you see an elderly person who's very patient and very calm and deals with situations so well, that's how you teach somebody. Because everybody knows what it's like to, be in stressful situation and difficult. You say, oh, what a role model that elder is. When he's got some, or she's got some illness and a bad back and a bad leg, never complains, never makes a fuss, never gets irritable when things don't go their way. This is how you teach people, by how you deal with situations and by allowing the Dhamma to express itself in your behavior. We tend to overrate the words that we say, and it's what you do, who you are, that affects people, rather than so much the content of what you say. So many parents will complain, my kids don't listen to a word I say. And that may be true, or they may, but they watch you. They watch everything you do. They may not listen to everything you say. So it's how you live your life, how you deal with life, the values that you express through the way you live your life. These are the things that people pick up on. Satya is truthfulness. And so we have, in Sila, we have this precept of not lying. But Satya is more than that. It takes it up another level. It's just this love of truth and unwillingness to lie, beginning with yourself, being honest with yourself about what's going on. Often people act badly in way or say things, and then they spend a lot of time trying to think of ways to spin what they said, find a story in which they can explain to themselves and others why what they did was really quite rational and normal and not worthy of criticism at all. And that constant effort to massage the truth, to push and pull it, and to make it just a bit better and more favorable to us. This is what we see through this love of truth and truthfulness, and we hold to the truth. That doesn't mean you have to, hit people over the head with your truth or your version of the truth. But you have that integrity where you hold on to that, and you love the truth. So why is it when we listen to the Dhamma, and suddenly we felt tears in our eyes, and you just feel so. What is that? It's because you feel that's so true. That's so true. I never thought about that before. I never realized that before. Oh yes, that's Satya, isn't it? That's the joy from Dhamma when you realize that's true. And isn't it beautiful that as human beings we can experience joy simply by listening to something that's true? It's a wonderful thing. So develop that love of truth within you. In some of the commentaries and some of the treatises about the Bharami, one of the points made is that over his many lifetimes as a bodhisattva, you can find the Buddha acting in ways which are not generous, which are not performing to sila, not wise, but he never betrays the Satya Bharami. That's the one unbroken Bharami. That's a commentarial point, I think, quite nice. Adhitthana, what does that mean? Adhitthana means we're developing the power of vows. And why adhitthana? Adhitthana is especially good and helpful if you tend to think a lot and doubt a lot, and you never follow through on things. You do this a little bit, and then it gets a bit difficult, you get bored, and you go on to something else, and you try that, and it works for a while, and then you give up on that. And you're never going to get anywhere if you do that, are you? And creating and cultivating adhitthana bharami, then you take on some practice. And it's better to do it for a short period of time. But the point about adhitthana is when you make a vow, don't make it too idealistic and so that you cannot be successful. And don't make it too easy. So I have a simile here. I'm probably few of you play tennis. I have never played tennis in my life, but this is a tennis simile. Let's say you were to play a game of tennis against somebody who was much better than you, and you lost, like 6-love, 6-love, 6-0, 6-0. That would just be so depressing, wouldn't it? And you wouldn't learn anything. And if you were to play someone much inferior to you, similarly, you won 6-love, 6-love, 6-0, 6-0, that would be pretty boring, you know. You wouldn't get any benefit from that. But if you play tennis or any other sport, who's someone who's a bit better than you, what happens? It's so enjoyable. And you often find you're playing better than you thought you could. It's like that slightly superior opponent draws out this skill and qualities that you didn't know you had. And so this is the idea of adhitthana. You give yourself these tasks that are a bit difficult, not easy, but not idealistic, in a sense, unattainable. And then when you are successful, it just gives you so much energy and inspiration. And you think, yeah, I can do this. So the path to Nibbana is a long path for sure. And everyone's going to have ups and downs where you have doubts and you lose your inspiration. And adhitthana is very good for this because adhitthana means you give yourself intermediate goals, like at steady intervals. So you have this feeling something's happening. You know, I'm not just stagnating. I'm not going back. Yes, I'm achieving something. So even if it's something quite small, minor, but it is a proof to yourself, yeah, I can do this. It's hard. It's tough. It's take a long time. But I can do it if I just, this is a value of adhitthana barami. It just gives you that kind of consistent inspiration by proving to yourself that you can achieve goals. So during the wasa, you know, then many people in Thailand, I don't know here amongst Buddhist community, many of the lay community take on certain practices during the wasa. Some people may say not to take an evening meal. Other people, that's not so easy with the family. And then maybe not to eat anything sweet or through the pansa. Or you have something that you like, bit of an attachment, and you keep on thinking, yeah, I'm going to do something about that tomorrow. Yes, tomorrow I'm going to do it. And you think, you know, tomorrow and today, they're so close together. You know, today's almost tomorrow. So you always think you're about to do it, but you don't ever get around to doing it. So making an adhitthana can deal with that. Say, yeah, I keep on making an adhitthana to exercise every day. And somehow, yeah, this goes on and that goes on. Or to meditate every day, and I do some days, but when I'm busy or I'm tired. So you make an adhitthana. Like for meditation, it's very good during wasa. And my suggestion is if you make an adhitthana, make it a weekly adhitthana. Let's say your plan would be to meditate for half an hour a day, let's say. But if you make it, I will meditate for half an hour throughout the wasa, 90 days or whatever. And then one day you're sick, you've got a cold, or there's some family emergency, and then you cannot do it. And then you say, that's it. That's my adhitthana out the window. I'm a failure. I couldn't do it, and you just feel terrible. So if you say 30 minutes a day or 20 minutes a day, let's say 30 minutes a day would be 7 30s is what is 21. So 210 minutes a week. Okay. So let's say today, like you just couldn't do it, just don't feel well. Then okay, you just add on a few minutes tomorrow, and you make it up. So you give yourself a little bit of flexibility that you can still maintain your adityan, even though every now and again you have some hiccups or some difficulty. Adityan is wonderful. Metta is it's just the secret to happy life, isn't it? You feel metta. It's like, why don't more people do it? So I think one of the big questions or doubts people have, how can you have metta for nasty people, nasty, cruel people, or people who are selfish and who enjoy taking advantage? I can have metta, for this person. But if you can have metta for nice people, that's not metta, is it? I mean, anybody can do that, So the practice is, we say, mettancha sapalokasaming in our brain. So it's like every world, every environment, everybody, it doesn't choose, doesn't pick and choose. So this is the jiu-jitsu movement, okay? This is the judo movement. This is the tip. Like somebody's really selfish, and they really like being selfish. And you think, may they be happy, then you have this down, well, what makes them happy is being selfish. So if I'm asking them, may they be happy, then I'm kind of supporting them being selfish. That doesn't seem right. So what you do is you send these thoughts of metta, this selfish person, you say, may that person know the joy of unselfishness. Yeah. This very aggressive person, may that person know the happiness and the joy of non-aggression. And so you take the quality in that person that you think prevents you from feeling metta, and that's what actually allows you to feel metta, because you imagine that person suddenly free of that quality, and how much better their life would be, and how much better everybody else's life would be if that was the case. So we can always find a way to feel metta, but you need to use a little bit of wisdom, a little bit of discrimination, and if you have some resistance, then use the resistance itself to intensify the metta, rather than just assume that it's an obstacle to it. Finally, upekkha, and that's equanimity and balance of mind. And the reflecting on law of karma is very helpful for this, when we know that people we want to help somebody, we want to help them to be free of their dukkha, help them to be happy, but we can't. And why can't we? They don't trust us enough. They're happy enough. They're satisfied with their addiction or their problems, and for one reason or another, we can't help somebody. So how do you deal with that? Well, you dwell in upekkha, they have the karmic obstacles right now. But if they change and something had changed and I can help them, I will. But for the moment, keep a steady mind. And upekkha is strengthened also by this wisdom observation. Things going up and down. If you're in any kind of organization, even in monasteries, have ups and downs. And the first up and the first down, really affect people. So if you're in a monastery and then suddenly things start to go very well in the monastery, and the young monk will think, oh, it's so much better. When I first came, the monastery, and now it's so wonderful and everything's getting better and better. And the monks who've been around for a while just kind of smile, because they know, yeah, it's not sure thing, it changes. And other monks that come when everything's going very well, and there's some problems in the sangha and some problems in the monastery, and they say, when I came it was wonderful, but these days it's not like what it used to be. It's all going to downhill and it's going to the dogs, and the senior monks, they just kind of smile because they know it's not sure. It changes all the time. And so constantly reflecting on impermanence and unreliability, instability, constant change, this gives you that calm and even mind. You don't jump to conclusions, or don't think because things are going well right now, they're just going to keep on going well, or things are not going so well that they're going to be like that forever. So constantly reflecting on impermanence brings you to equanimity. So I'm going to summarize those 10 qualities. I hope you can remember. Dana, it's usually quite good to look at them in pairs. So dana and sila, nekama and panya. What's the next one? Viriya and kanti, satcha, aditana, metta, and upekha. So may you all grow in all of these good qualities. And I'd like to end my discourse at this point. So we have some time for any questions. Anyone wants to argue with me or tell me where I got it wrong? You know, you can. I'm quite happy to listen.
Think the one small announcement. You have to put on your mobile phone in silent mode, please. Some people are, their mobile phone is ringing. So please be mindful. You have questions? Anybody have any questions? Yeah. Someone has raised the hand.
Thank you so much. It was such a beautiful talk. My question is, modern life has become so stressful, so many distractions, our phones, our devices, everyday life. Sometimes, to practice these values like patience, compassion, mindfulness becomes a challenge. So, in our everyday life, if you could give a practical tip, I know you were talking about all this, but I just want to know that how do we embrace life in spite of its countless distractions? As a householder, as a mother to a teenager, as a professional, my own parents are very, very senior now. They're elderly. So there are so many challenges. So, and the world today is in such a situation, whenever you look at the newspaper, something or the other is going so wrong. So, in the midst of all these challenges, how do I embrace mindfulness and patience?
Well, one of the points, to begin with, one of the points I made right at the beginning of the discourse is to encourage you to use some of these groups of Dhammas, this 10 virtues, as a checklist and something to come back to again and again, daily even. And that gives you a sense of when you're losing your balance or what is actually becoming weak or what you need to work upon. And it becomes just part of your sense of your daily life and what you're attending to on a daily basis. So it's a matter of elevating these things and having them in your mind and being present in your mind as criteria and as helping you to make the ordinary mundane decisions of life. I certainly very much sympathize. I mean, this is quite a modern situation now where women of your age or both women and men are having both teenage kids to look after and parents and being pulled in two directions at the same time. And I know that's so tough. So I don't want to minimize how difficult that is. But I would say that where you can simplify, then try to simplify. And one of the very simple things is around devices. For example, just to make a rule not to look at your phone for the last half an hour before you go to bed, or the first half an hour after you wake up in the morning. So you have that little island of peace. And again, first thing in the morning, if you meditate, that will give you a grounding in mindfulness and awareness that you can feel throughout the day. And if you can observe how early morning meditation does really help you, then that's empowering and gives you the motivation to keep going. Society is, we talk about society, but what do we really mean by that? I mean, it's a concept rather than something that we can experience. And in fact, within the larger concept of society, we have many, many smaller societies. So there's not just one thing called society. And here, the importance of cultivating good friends, supportive friends, and have people who are in the same situation and understand you, and you can help each other out. And having people, same values, same aspirations, same challenges, and creating this group of friends, this small society within the larger society. And this is one of the good things to come of social media, that you can do that. You can make like a social media group. And a lot of groups now, they come together online and meditate together, or listen to Dhamma together, or just share their experience. So having that, what that feels like when there's somebody who really understands where you're at, they're in that same, and just having that sense of being understood and listened to and being able to express your frustrations sometimes. That's a really good thing. And then to have some Dhamma practice with a group, that's a wonderful thing. And there are a number of monasteries and Buddhist groups now that provide that, have the online. I don't know whether here, or maybe it's something that the Venerables here might consider, to like live stream the morning and evening chanting for during the Wasa, for example. I know monasteries in Thailand who do that, and people can get up, and they're just easier, to be with the Venerables than to join in. But life's always been stressful. It's not. I mean, the particular stresses, or the things that are causing stress, may be different now. But life's always been difficult and stressful. And I personally, I would say that this is, without doubt, the best time in history to be a woman, isn't it? I mean, if you look at the lot of women in the past and the amount of freedom that you have, whether it's freedom to to get a good education, to get a good job, marry or not marry, to have children or not have. It's like unthinkable even 100 years ago. And to study the Dhamma and, to come out at night time and come to, listen to the Dhamma. These things are, these things really, I don't think we appreciate enough, and to find some joy in also. And I think that simplifying where you can, having some kind of discipline around social media, good friends, these kinds of things.
Thank you. Thank you so much. My question is like, I'm able to watch my thought, watch my body, and very difficult to watch my breath. And I notice nowadays, when I start giving metta, breath now comes of its own. I would like to ask you, like, what is the secret here between breath and metta?
Right. Sorry, my ears are not good.
Oh, closer. Okay.
Oh, okay. Difference between breath and metta.
Yes, when I start giving metta to someone, automatically breath comes.
Yeah.
But if I'm not able to watch breath every time.
Yeah. But these are two different meditation practices. And so, make a choice, now I'm going to do the anapanasati, or you're going to do the metta, or many meditators like to begin a meditation with a few minutes of metta because it brings up a lot of positive feelings and emotions, and that can be like a real power in the anapanasati. You can also, this is not in line with Visuddhimagga or the traditional explanations, but you can do the metta on the breath, like you develop this loving kindness for the in-breath and the out-breath, just radiating this positive emotion towards the in-breath and the out-breath. And that's quite a powerful way to develop anapanasati. Another way which combines anapanasati and metta is, as you breathe in, you just feel you're breathing in the metta and the loving kindness. And as you breathe out, you imagine you're like a lantern or a light spreading its light of wisdom in all directions, a light of metta in all directions. So in breath, you bring in the metta to yourself, out breath, metta to all beings. So you can be creative. You can try things out. No matter how complex and the meditation instructions are. At the end of the day, there's a lot of trial and error involved. Even if you have a great teacher and you can try things, and for yourself, does this work? Is the mindfulness increasing? Are the hindrances decreasing? But so you can to summarize my answer, you can either completely separate the anapanasati practice from the metta practice, or you can practice the metta first and then go on to anapanasati, or you can experiment with hybrid, combining, as I said, just feeling this metta in your heart and then projecting that onto the breath, or in-breath metta for yourself, out-breath metta for all sentient beings.
Thank you.
Sorry, there's somebody over here. Okay, so there's somebody at the back and somebody over here.
Vandami Ajahn. The government of India in every sector has allowed foreign direct investment. Any company can start any business in India. And in our country, we find more of Thai spas rather than Thai monastery in our country. Therefore, I request Ajahn to inform the government authorities of Thailand to establish Thai monasteries in Bengaluru and important cities of Bengaluru and enable the Indians to practice meditation, as well as you can give back something to the land of Buddha.
Yes, thank you. Well, first of all, the way that monasteries are set up, like the Theravada way, is that we only teach people who ask us to teach. Okay, and this is why Theravada Buddha, we are not missionaries. We don't go and knock on people's doors and say, "Have you read the Dhammapada?" or something like this. No. Have you heard the good news about the Lord Buddha? We don't do that. So the first movement must come from lay support. So if you're a monk, and so I have obviously some experience with this. Some lay people would come from Bangalore or Mysore or from somewhere. Bante, we want a monastery in our town. I would say, how many people are you? How strong is your group? Because in monks, in my tradition, we don't use money, and we are totally dependent on the lay supporters. And I've seen this in some countries where people are so enthusiastic, there's a core group of maybe 10 people. And then this group, they have a new job and they move to somewhere else. This group have an argument and they divorce, and suddenly, all your lay supporters disappeared. And so before starting a monastery, and that will often include taking the money from lay people and building things, you don't want to be taking donations and building a monastery, and then there's no support for the monastery and the monks can't live there, or else the monks are living there and nobody is coming to the monastery and benefiting from monastery. So, if you say that like Thai monastery, there's more Thai spas than there are Thai monasteries. There are more Indian people interested in going to Thai spas than there are people going to monasteries. This is the law of the market. It's the supply and demand, I think. So to create a monastery, you have to really plan it. You have to have a firm and stable group of lay supporters and people who are going to be there for the long term. Before, we're not like, the Thai government will send monasteries here and there and just hope that something will come from it. To be frank, the Thai monks who have the skills and the ability to run a monastery in another country, not so many. Language and culture, these are big differences. Even though we are both Buddhists, there are significant differences and challenges for monks coming from overseas. My own feeling is I want to support young Indians to become monks and good monks. We want homegrown Sangha. We don't need imported Sangha. Maybe to come and like give talks, some inspiration, but for long term, it's like homegrown Sangha. And so this is why I like to come here, and Ajahn Kevali from Wat Nanachat, because we have the same idea. When we see some monastery trying to train the young Indian novices and monks, we say, yeah, this is what we want to support, rather than we want to create something from Thailand. By this lady over here.
Namo Buddhaya Bhantije. I want to know a little bit about core principles of metta.
About
Core principles of metta.
well, metta is is the just this fundamental wish and aspiration for all beings to be well, and so it's not so much kind of technical information involved. It's just you have that already, I'm sure, to one degree, and it's just cultivating it. It's like a tree. You cultivate it, and so you do it in like formal situation with your eyes closed in a meditation hall, and then in daily life. And I think like in the traffic in Bangalore is this best time for metta meditation. So the person who's in front, may you be happy, and on this side, may you be happy, and may you be happy, and you keep changing lane, even you, may you be happy, and so it's something you can apply, and then you you apply these techniques, and then it just becomes part of you. It doesn't become like a practice. You just find that you are inclined to acting and speaking in ways that are helpful and supportive and kind to other beings. It just becomes normal and natural. But to begin with, you cultivate it in a kind of more artificial way, and then it becomes more natural as time goes on. But for the specific sort of meditation practices, then again, you don't have to follow what's in books. I really want to encourage people to be more creative. It's when you have the basic principles, then in the details, you can customize a little bit, as long as you keep to the main principles. So one of the things that the Western monks in my tradition, they found when they went to America and UK and these places, that one of so we're all human beings, we all have same basic psychology, but cultural and religious influences are still there, even though people don't think they're self-religious. So one of the main cultural ideas underlying Western psychology is like original sin. So how that manifests is that people generally have a very negative view of themselves. They're very self-critical and very down on themselves. And so in the Visuddhimagga or any of the traditional meditation manuals, they say you give loving kindness to yourself, and then to benefactors, and then you sort of gradually expand. Eventually, people that you don't really know, you feel like somebody who sells something on the street, and then to enemies. So but the basic principle is you start off with what's easiest, and then gradually, patiently work to what's most difficult. For most Westerners, sending loving kindness to yourself is not easiest. It's the hardest. And so some of the monks, they start to teach, think of a puppy or a kitten or something. You think, oh, so cute, so lovely. And then that's like how you start the metta. Because for many people, especially in the West, they can spend metta to dogs and cats easier than to themselves. Okay, so I think that if you have the main principle is start off what's easy, and then move towards more difficult, then whatever's easy for you, that's where you start. And it might be yourself, or it might be a cat or a dog or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's just that you find what works for you, which is in harmony with the main principle. Yes, at the back there. Can we have it?
Hello. I find myself attached to many different things.
Uh-huh.
For example, I'm very attached to food. I'm very attached to my job. I find myself very attached to my family. And I acknowledge to you that with attachment comes suffering, but also with attachment comes a lot of joy. And I'm willing to accept that suffering as part of my life, just as I'm willing to accept joy. And with that in mind, if I'm willing to accept the suffering that comes with attachment, is there any value to renunciation?
Well, first of all, I think it's, I think it's easy to say that when you're experiencing the joy and not the suffering. But you are going to experience in your life periods of separation from things that bring you joy, whether it's your career or family. And so this is if you remember, during the Dhamma discourse, I said it's not trying to say you shouldn't be attached to things, you should, what I'm saying is you should be aware to what extent your experience is predicated on closing your mind to certain possibilities and certain aspects of the truth of the human condition. And the Buddha says that the most mature way to live your life is to open yourself to the way things are and see what happens. And what does attachment even mean? I mean, we can have a strong commitment to something that we're not necessarily being an attachment. At the monastery where I live, we used to have people who would come and sort of challenge the monks and say, you're just attached to all your rules. And I would say, well, how can I respond to that? What do you want me to do? Like break a rule to show you that I'm not attached? For me, there's a difference between being loyal to something and being attached to it. And or I could say, everyone in India is so attached to the idea of driving on the left-hand side of the road. It's so conformist. Why don't you try and drive on the right-hand side for a change, see what happens? But no, it's a convention. It's not an attachment, because we agree that for the safety of everyone involved, we all drive on the same side of the road. But the idea that attachments bring joy and bring suffering, and the joy outweighs this, that's a very common view. But very few people ever come to sustain that throughout their life, because there's so many things that go on. But what we're talking about here is the sense of an inner freedom. If your sense of well-being and self-respect and so on is dependent on something outside of yourself, you are always vulnerable. You can never find any true stability and peace in your life. So this is a Buddhist reflection. So to what extent you need to develop some inner resources, as well as not saying give up and renounce family and job and all these things, but at the same time, developing this inner strength and resource to the extent that you're confident that if things change, you're ready for that. You can deal with that. Because a lot of people who don't do that, then let's take an example. During COVID, how many people in COVID went from just an occasional drink of alcohol for relaxation to serious drinkers? Now, when they were in that situation where things changed in a way that was very threatening to them and undermined all their usual routines and the things that gave them pleasure, then any kind of addiction or something suddenly became stronger. And so many people lost their way during COVID when they're not having that external support that they were dependent on. And so this is, in terms of renunciation, like a 10-day meditation retreat once a year or something like that. That's quite a good balanced kind of renunciation in which you remove yourself completely from all the things that you value and enjoy just for 10 days. It's not, it's not a long-term commitment, and see how you feel and see what happens and see whether your feelings change. It's a real challenge. So I see Buddhism not, as not advocating everyone just give up your families and give up food and give up all these things. It's saying be more aware, be more observant of your feelings, and with food, it's interesting. I mean, let's say you have your favorite food. There's a talk to kids at school about it. Ask kids, what's your favorite food? I love this food. They say, well, what if you were to have the same food every day, forever? So if there was something intrinsically pleasant in that food, then the more you have it, the better. But that's not the case. And why is it not? And why is it in most sensual pleasures, then we can see this process in which you have to keep increasing the input to get the same output of feeling. Sensual pleasures are kind of boring after a while. So people seem to intensify them or diversify them or find something to freshen them up, because in themselves quite repetitive. So this is, just things like Buddhist reflections to consider in one's relationship to the sensual world. Yes. Sorry, somebody over.
Thanks. I'm Professor Jagannatha, a space scientist. Now I'm studying seriously theologies and life in cosmos and exoplanets. My question is, after all these turmoils of war, hatred, violence, everything going on, can we expect a mind-to-mind relationship, whereas mind-to-machine is taking place? Mind-to-mind, I mean to say, in a time of non-realization of remote sensing, now it has become a reality. The transmitter is there, the receiver is there in the two objects, and transformation of information takes place. Getting information without contact takes place. My question is, can Buddhist philosophical perspectives link mind to mind sometime, so that there is some sort of a community level Buddhist conscience, so that it can make a difference for the future of mankind? I hope I am clear. Otherwise, I will take.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, mind to mind transmission. Just generally, I mean, we already have that between people who love each other, between parents and children. On some occasions, particularly between twins. That there are some quite remarkable studies done. I myself have an example of this. There's some young man, twins from Dominican Republic, and the son, the boy, went to study in the States and was successful, and then went on to become a lecturer in the university where he graduated. And the daughter, the sister, stayed at home. And he fell into a deep depression, decided to kill himself, and he accumulated a large number of sleeping pills, and then took a very large number. And so this wasn't kind of like a call for help. He really definitely determined to end his life. And he'd fallen asleep, unconscious, and the telephone rang. And that's the first marvelous thing, that he even heard the telephone. And he picked up the telephone, and it was his sister in Dominican Republic. She couldn't sleep. She just had this intuition that her brother was in deadly danger. And of course, he couldn't speak because of the power of the drugs, but she immediately realized that something was wrong. She put down the phone, she got in touch with emergency services, and they were able to save his life. And afterwards, he left his university and eventually came to a monastery where he told me his story. But those kinds of communication between twins over large areas, I think in itself, just one of those stories is enough to undermine this idea of the mind as being simply an adjunct of brain chemicals and brain function. And there are so many such examples. So apart from that kind of mind-to-mind communication, and I think it's far more common than is recognized, it's not something that you can plan in advance. You know, it's not a kind of like a free telephone line or something like that. But some meditators at a high level of practice develop that telepathic powers, and they can read other people's minds. And I would say over 40 years, I'm quite skeptical myself. And in many cases, I've heard stories about monks reading people's minds, and I've dismissed them as being coincidence and so on. But there are so many cases also which the rationalist, skeptical approach just doesn't explain the phenomena. And what I've observed with those people who have the ability to read minds, there are two possibilities here. One is a direct power of the mind, and the other is when and this may be, as a scientist, you might find more difficult to credit, when there are devas or heavenly beings who will inform that person. So it's going through like a deva connection rather than a direct mind-to-mind communication. In both cases, my observation is that there will tend to be a certain amount of interpretation on the part of the person who receives that information or that method. For example, conditioned by their culture, by their beliefs, by their background. And so it's not like you get a pure, like a, I don't know, like a message from that you could pick up on a transmitter from another planet or something. It's one which has been mediated through the citta and through the perceptions of the receiver. So it's not, it can be amazingly accurate, but every now and again you see certain features that you think that's coming from some conscious or subconscious interpretation of the messages that monk or that person is receiving. I don't think that we can look on mind-to-mind transmission as in any way practical or applicable on a wide scale. It seems to be only a very few gifted individuals will ever have this power unless something radically changes in the future. Did you?
Yes, Namo Buddhaya. In today's time, mental health is one of the biggest challenges. And does meditation help to overcome such issues?
Of course. I mean, how could it not? I mean, of course, there are. Maybe we can say there are people with genetic predisposition to mental problems, so then more difficult. There are also people who have experienced severe trauma in childhood, again more difficult. So you see, meditation is rather narrow. We're talking about the whole Buddhist education, if you like, and meditation is not like a magic bullet or like a magic cure for mental health issues. It depends very much on the person, their situation, family situation, so many things. If someone is suffering from depression or even some psychosis, if somebody like that came to a monastery, you would stop them meditating. Meditating will make it worse. But in the case of someone who has some severe depression or something, then dana and sila are the things you would stress. Encouraging them to offer dana, to make some cookies and go and give them to go to some orphanage, or just do some good things for other people. And especially if you cook for other people and you see the joy on their face, that's healing. And sila, often, if people keep precepts that prevents a lot of mental health problems in the first place, they don't, then it makes them worse. But there are other things involved also with people with depression, which is a major one, as you know right now. Then this exercise, getting out of the house, change of place, out in the nature. Nature is a wonderful healer of. If it's not like really chronic depression, if it's a short-term depression through some event or some loss and grief or something, like often just nutritious food, change of place, exercise, all these kind of basic things. But having someone sit with their eyes closed, often it just makes it worse, because they're just, not meditating. They're just going over and over and over their same things that are causing them to feel bad in the first place. So I think to really benefit from meditation, you need a certain kind of mental stability. It's not like a cure for much mental ill health, as a kind of like an antidote. It's more of a prophylactic. It prevents you getting those illnesses in the first place.
Namo Buddhaya. I'm Rahul Buddha. Bande, please give a guideline. A new converted family, give a guideline, because I see most of the person who converted into Buddhism, few months, they come back to their original starting point.
What is that? What is their starting point?
Starting point, I think most of in India, converted peoples are Hindus. They don't know Buddhism, about the Buddhism and their philosophy, meditations. They don't know, but they they converted Buddhism. Fewer 3 days they will be converted. They does not follow the Buddhism.
How would you define converting to Buddhism? What does that consist of?
Converter means they take Buddhism for their life to adopt their shilas, meditation, etc. But fewer 3 days it will be entered.
Yeah, I mean, we like to become Buddhists means taking Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha as refuge, and so you really have to understand what that means, what taking refuge in Buddha means, and Dhamma, and Sangha, and maybe the people who are saying they're converting, they don't, it's just like a fashion, or else they have very superficial understanding of what that means, and so it doesn't really stick, and then they change back to what they were before. So we're not Buddhism. We're not so. We don't want to convert everybody, but people, especially Theravada Buddhism, it's more like take it or leave it. This is what we have. If you like this, we'll share it with you, but we're not going to push on you. But if you come, you need to really study and understand what the Buddha's teaching consists of. And so you can come here, for example, speak to the Venerable Ajahn and ask for some guidance, for, I go to China every year and I have students in China. I've known some people for 2 years, 3 years, and they said, Tanajan, I think I'm ready now to take the 3 refuges and the 5 precepts. It's like turning point in their life. It's just such an emotional thing for them. And they really thought it through, and they've listened to Dhamma teachings, and they're over and again, and then after, say 1 year or 2 years, now they're ready. So, and I like that, it means that someone's really knows what that means. Similarly, in Thailand, for a Thai person to become a monk, you can go to a monastery and within 2 or 3 days, you can be a monk. It's just too easy. But in my tradition, Ajahn Chah tradition, I was in the monastery for 2 years before I was given Upasampada. This was Ajahn Chah tradition or policy for Westerners who coming to this fresh, like as you can say, like convert. You have to wear white and keep 8 precepts for some months. Then you become a novice for over a year. So you're learning about monastic life. Novice is very good, even if you're over 20 years old, because you are part of the Sangha, you dress, you wear the robes, but you don't have the same pressure of all the Vinaya rules. And it's a good time to really see, is this really what I want to do? And so Ajahn Chah would say, if you become a monk too easily, you will leave too easily. If it's really difficult for you to become a monk, it'll be more difficult for you to leave. So, yeah, I don't know if I've answered your question, but I think it's because people are not doing enough study and really understand what it means to become a Buddhist, if they are to give up on it so easily. There is someone at the back.
Vandami Bhanteji. So I am 29 and I have started a company. So my question is, what kind of a relationship should we have with money? And as a Buddhist, how should we look at money, wealth, and where do we draw the line between ambition and greed? And how do we look at greed also and ambition?
Yeah, so in the Buddhist teachings, there is no criticism of people working hard and aspiring to be successful, or there's no criticism of wealthy people, rich people. But the Buddha's criticism or injunction was first that you should work honestly and not cheat or take advantage of anyone, whether that's your competitors or your customers or the people who work for you. Having a very firm moral code. And then as you receive the fruits of your work, you should not be, this is the worst thing for a Buddha, being stingy. And so knowing to use those things to give yourself a good, comfortable life, but also for the benefit of your family and relatives and other dependents, and to do good things in society, support your religion. So not just, just accumulation of money for the sake of it, but seeing it as a means to an end rather than an end in itself. So if you are successful and you make a lot of money, then you can do so many more good things than if you're not. So, but the third factor is not to become like obsessed with money and status, because those things will undermine the happiness that you and the pleasure you should get from your work. I think if your work is directly contributing to the welfare of the society, that's wonderful. But failing that, or if it's kind of neutral, then having really trying to increase the quality of life of the people who work for you. And in Thailand, some of the owners of businesses and factories and things that I know, they will sponsor some of their employees to go on retreats. And so in terms of their looking after the people they work for, them as if they are genuine, not just saying we're family, but genuinely treating the people well. I think that is the Buddhist way. So I'm going to have to end this now because I've got a plane to catch and I want to spend some time with the Sangha before I leave, but we can maybe take one more question.
I have two questions. One question is about chanting. What is the benefit of chanting? And for a layman, is chanting essential? The second question is about the retreats, the different types of techniques in Theravada or otherwise. So is there a principle which we should apply? What is good for me?
Yes. Chanting is really not a core practice, but it performs a number of different functions. In a community, chanting together is an expression of communal harmony, and it brings up some very positive emotions. And if I'm where I live, we have these twice monthly Sunday morning meditation sessions or practice sessions, and people come from all over, from Bangkok and from different provinces, and they all come. So they're a core group of people who come every time, and there are new people. And so we always start off with a period of chanting, because it's incredible how that chanting just unifies the group in a very short time. It's a very efficient way of creating a sense of a community rather than people coming from all over. It can be a good samatha practice in a preparation for anapanasati and so on, because your mindfulness is on, if it's Pali and you don't understand the Pali, then the mindfulness is on the sound, maybe harmonizing with others, but the the positions of the lips and the tongue and just the movements of the mouth as you make the sounds. And that can be very, very calming and a good preparation for meditation. Some people have a real connection with chanting, and it brings up incredible joy, and other people just don't like it at all. It doesn't. If you don't like it very much, it's perfectly all right just to do a little bit, few minutes, just choose chants that you like and inspire you. But there's no kind of compulsory chants that you have to do. And there are some chants that you can, there's chants with the English translation. If you go to the websites of what Nanachat or Amaravati or Abhayagiri in the Ajahn Chah tradition, then they have audio files, and chanting with translation can also be very enjoyable. But something to enjoy, really. As far as meditation retreats, my own view is that there's too much emphasis on technique. It's got to be the technique is not the main thing. It's more your approach and your why you're meditating and having that right view to be able to apply techniques. What I think is more important is choosing a group. So you're avoiding a group where it's very commercial, or you're being pressured or manipulated to make donations. Look at the power structure in that center or monastery. How is if you've got this very kind of cult-like figure, and nobody's allowed to criticize them, and that's something to be wary of. If the teachers trying to create a cult around them, personality cult, then keep away from that. And then there are if you're having a long-term relationship with the group, I think you should be looking into their how their finances go, and their if it's monks and celibates, how they behave towards women, and whether they're keeping all the Vinaya rules. So just due diligence, I would say, just the same, as in the world, So there's always things that are, that are the key issues in any kind of group. There's things around power, money, and sex, those things. And so be diligent about those things. And if you find, a group that are fine on all those things, just try different techniques. Just spend a certain period where you experiment a bit. And then after you've tried a few things out, and say, okay, now it's time to assess which works for me, which suits me best, and then make a more firm commitment to one particular training. My schedule in India, Dhamma talk, is not sure, and not a fixed schedule. I have been coming to India in December, and so usually I'm in Maharashtra in the late December, January, and then maybe giving Dhamma talks in Nagpur or Akola, or it changes year from year, because I'm walking mostly in the villages, and then when we stop, I'm going to give Dhamma talks in the cities, like big Dhamma talks, but otherwise put up our tent and it's giving Dhamma talks to local villagers who come in the evening after they finish their work. If you like, I'm sure I have a secretary now, and if there are Dhamma talks being scheduled for that time, I can ask my secretary to send the information here, and maybe you can find out here. But coming to Bangalore now is a good option for me, because they have a direct flight from Bangalore to Bangkok, so it's quite a convenient way for me to arrive or depart the country. So we have to thank Thai Airways for this opportunity. I also have, I may have mentioned this to you before. I have a rather unusual major project. So I'm very concerned about the country I live in Thailand, and I feel Buddhism is like the frog in the pot of water, you know, and the frog doesn't realize, but the water's getting hot, and then eventually too hot for the frog to escape, and he gets boiled. And so much of Buddhist values and culture and teachings is just kind of disappearing in Thailand, especially in the cities. And a lot of the, we can say, folk Buddhism or Buddhism outside the monasteries, that was so much a part of people's lives for so long, has been disappearing. And so I was thinking about what could be done to try to reinvigorate like a folk Buddhist tradition, like, and so my answer was a TV series. So I've written a 10-part, 10-hour TV series, which is set in the time of the Buddha, and the idea is the hero is an ordinary person. He's an outcast who becomes a novice, friend of Rahula, attendant to Sariputta, goes to know Moggallana and Ananda, all the other great monks. And then after some years, he leaves the monkhood, becomes a householder, goes to work for Anathapindika, marries a relative of Visakha, has a couple of kids, and faces all the challenges of a lay Buddhist in the world. And then after a tragedy, he returns to the Sangha as a senior monk, and it's very different. Now there's a patimokkha, now there are bad monks, and he has to adapt. And then the whole Devadatta drama arises. And then the whole thing is told as a series of flashbacks from the funeral of the Lord Buddha. And the last episode sees him following the Lord Buddha to Kusinara. So the idea is that rather than having all these Arya Pugalas and great figures as like kind of mythical creatures, then it's brought down to earth because we see them through the eyes of an ordinary person who has lots of difficulties. He's not so bright, he even falls asleep when the Buddha's teaching. Meditation is tough. And so seeing like all these incredible people and events through the eyes of an ordinary person. So this screenplay I've written is completed now, and there were 5 different production companies all wanting to film it, and we finally made a decision, and now we'll be moving into pre-production, or actually I'm sort of, I'm moving back now because my thing was writing the script. But why I'm telling you this is because most of the filming will be in Thailand, but at the beginning of next year, we'll be filming the Buddha's funeral, Parinibbana and the Buddha's funeral somewhere in Maharashtra, probably in Nagpur area. So I will be here for then. So I think all of this is tell you, I'm going to be here over New Year, probably a bit longer than usual. And there may well be more Dhamma talks, and I'll try to let you know. So this TV series is produced completely by donation, so it's Dhammadana, and it will be distributed for YouTube for everyone free all around the world, because it will be filmed in English, but there will be Marathi, Hindi, Thai, other dubbing and subtitles and so on.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ajahn, for this enlightening session. I hope all your Upasak and Upasikas have got some Dhamma knowledge. And I hope you will reflect on what Ajahn said today. And if you want to reflect, or if you want to do more consideration, I think you can watch in YouTube also. If you have forgotten what have Ajahn said, you can go back and watch again in Maha Bodhi YouTube channel. Okay. So if some Upasakas I saw you are raising your hands, we keep these questions for the next time when Ajahns return. I hope Ajahn will come again. Then you can ask these questions. So with this, we conclude.